Welcome into this week's edition of the Co-Lin Coaches Show. We've got a new sport, new season is happening, and joining me now is our head women's basketball coach, Dr. Britta Stevens. Coach, thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
And Coach, a weekend where you went over and played at the BRCC Lady Bear Classic. I think you probably described the weekend as a little up and down. You split the weekend, dropped a tough matchup against a really good Kilgore team, and then bounced back and got a big win over Shorter. But your thoughts first on the weekend as a whole?
Yeah, it was an up and down weekend. We had some travel challenges on Friday, which made Friday an even bigger challenge. Kilgore is a really good team, and we knew going in that we were open the season with a really good team. I don't mind that. I don't run from a challenge, and that's what we told our kids. We could open the season with so-and-so JV like some of our other opponents do, and we can get a win and win by 40 and feel good, but that doesn't necessarily make us better. We got beat by Kilgore, a really good Kilgore team who's going to be in the top 25, who I think has probably got a chance to make a run for a national championship down the road if they stay healthy. And we got better. We learned a lot of things from that game. I like this tournament because we had a really tough, challenging game in Kilgore, and then we were able to come back the second day with a Shorter team who is not nearly as powerful, but still was a good opponent for us and a good challenge for us, and we were able to pull out a win on that one.
So you look at the first game, look at that game against Kilgore. 82-51 was the score, and I think if you look at the box score, you probably circle the first and the fourth quarters. Those were probably your worst quarters. You get outscored in the first quarter 27-11. You match them point-wise in the second, 11 apiece, and then in the third quarter they only outscore you by 4, 22-18, and the fourth quarter is 22-11. So you look at the first and the fourth, when you get outscored 49-22, that's where your disparity is, because you look at the other two, it's a tight matchup in those middle quarters. But your thoughts overall on that matchup?
Yeah, and that was something we talked about going into the game is let's don't look at the game as a whole. Let's break it into small pieces, and we need to win quarters. And when you looked at that, the first quarter, we did not come out very strong. They came out firing on all cylinders. I think we had a lot of nerves. This is a totally new team. We've got a ton of new faces. So first college game for a lot of them, and they were very nervous. And so the first quarter was not very good. Second and third quarters, like you said, we matched them point for point and basket for basket. And then the fourth quarter, I think we just kind of ran out of some steam and everything. One stat that really stood out to me is we had 31 turnovers, and you cannot win when you have 31 turnovers against any team, but most especially against a really good Kilgore team like that. We looked at the stats yesterday in film when we looked at it. We shot 44 times. They shot 62. Well, they got 20 more shots than we did, essentially, because we turned it over 31 times. And of those 31 turnovers and those 20 extra shots, I would say the majority of them were transition fast break layups. They shot like 68% from the 2-point field goals because we turned the ball over and gave them easy opportunities, and that's what really hurt us. That was kind of the Achilles heel that cost us the game.
I think if you take a little bit deeper dive into that, looking at it, I believe y'all turned Kilgore over 27 times. So the disparity in turnovers wasn't that great. It just seems like they were able to take better advantage of those turnovers where our bunch wasn't.
Yeah, they were able to capitalize on the turnover opportunities where sometimes we forced some turnovers and we got some steals, but we weren't able to capitalize like they were. It's a little easier to capitalize on turnovers when you have a 6'1" guard and running up and down the floor. But like I said, we knew it was going to be a challenge, and I'm glad that we played them. I'm glad we started the year with them. I think they're the best team we'll see all year. I think they're going to be better than any team in our league that we're going to play, and I think that game is going to lay a foundation and help prepare us to be very successul in conference play.
So you look at the line score, Cookie Wilkinson and Imani Key, those were your top two scores. Cookie had 13, Imani had 12. You look up and down, Kirsten Haynes had 7, Madison Mitchell had 6, Jam Robinson, Cam Pruitt, 4 apiece, well with Zaria Hatton. And 1 point for Tyra Johnson. So, you got scoring from everybody. Again, who you expected Cookie to kind of led the way for you. Your thoughts on how the team really gelled in their first match, game?
And I think, if you watch us this year, Cookie Wilkinson will be our leading scorer. She's our only returning player who played a substantial amount of minutes last year. She's a very, very talented player. She can score at all 3 levels, and so we expect big numbers out of her every night. Imani Key is a kid who, when we recruited, she's a very similar player to Cookie, and we expected big numbers out of her, and she had not played well, and she kind of had a breakout game there against Kilgore. She played really well. There were a couple times that I felt like she should have shot it or she could have scored, but those two on the wings are really dynamic. I thought both of our point guards, Kylan Bell and Maddie Mitchell, I was very, very worried about them going into the game, I'll be honest, and I talked to them and I told them that because I was worried about them turning it over. I was worried about the length of Kilgore against them. Maddie Mitchell is 5'2" on a really good day, and so I was really worried about that, and those two, I thought they both played extremely well. They didn't turn the ball over. They didn't force shots. They made the plays and they ran the team. So I was really impressed with that. Tyra Johnson did not play great against Kilgore, but when we flip the page and start talking about Shorter, she was the one who really just had a great game in that game. It was hard for our bigs to get a lot going against Kilgore because their bigs were so big. One of their, they have a really talented sophomore and everything. So overall, I was pleased. Turnovers, we've got to cut those down. And that's something, even in our scrimmages, every time we scrimmaged, I would tell them, y'all, we've had 5 possessions, 5 turnovers. We can't do that. In the game, and I'm jumping ahead, in the game against Shorter in the third quarter, we had 4 possessions, 4 turnovers, and we fouled like 3 times. I'm like, those are double negatives. We can't have double negative possessions. And that's why in that third quarter against Shorter, and I know I'm jumping around, but we were 1 for 11 in shooting. And a lot of the reason that we did that is because we turned the ball over.
So we'll look at that Shorter game. I think a lot of times as a coach, you have to be worried anytime your team gets punched in the mouth, figuratively, and you drop one by 31, you're always worried about how they're going to rebound. I think you would say your team rebounded well. You get a 15-point win against Shorter. You look at the box score, you outscored them. In this game, you outscored Shorter in the first and fourth quarters, 24-14 in the first. They took the second quarter 17-14. The third quarter, you hit on it. They outscored you 11-5. And the fourth quarter, you outscored them 23-9. So you kind of flip-flopped those single-digit scoring quarters for each team, and that's how you get to 66-51. But your thoughts on how the team was able to rebound and get this win against Shorter?
Yeah, and we didn't harp too much on the loss against Kilgore because I do think they're such a talented team. Obviously, I don't like any loss, but that's a loss, a growing loss that I will live with. So I think I knew we were going to be able to rebound. Shorter did not have a lot of numbers. They had some people hurt and had some people not with them, and that is a scary team to play against because when you have 7 or 8 players, everybody on your bench is playing, and everybody on your bench is playing a lot, and everybody's happy. And I told him, I said, you can't underestimate this team. We came out in this game and we were on fire. We jumped out to a big lead, and then it was like we relaxed. We said, oh, okay, we're way ahead. We relaxed. Admittedly, I subbed a lot of people and played a lot of people. This is a totally new team. Coach Thompson and I are still trying to figure out lineups and who can play where and what situations and things like that. So we started subbing in the second quarter, and maybe that broke our flow a little bit. I'll take a little bit of the responsibility for that. When we went in at halftime and came back out in the third quarter, I told him, I said, the first 3 minutes of this third quarter are critical. And we went 7 minutes in the third quarter without scoring a basket. And that was really tough. Now, they didn't score a ton either, so it didn't affect us all that much, but against a really good team in a really back and forth battle, we can't go 7 minutes without scoring. And then in the fourth quarter, it was like a light switch flipped and we started rolling again. For me, the big difference was in the third quarter, we were getting the ball to the one side of the floor and keeping it on that side of the floor. And in the fourth, we started swinging it and reversing it from side to side, and we were able to get some inside touches, and then everything opened up for us.
You look at the line score, you had 4 players in double digits, led by Cookie again. She had a double-double, 16 points, 12 rebounds, a big-time game there from Cookie. Tyra Johnson had 13 and 7. So, again, we talked about how the light bulb went off for her. You can see it there on that stat line. 10 points apiece for Imani and Cam Pruitt. But anytime that you get a game where you've got 4 players, 3 of those are your starters in double digits, it's a winning combination, a winning formula for you.
Yeah, anytime you're going to have 4 players scoring in double figures, that's going to help you be successful. And I think that's going to be something this team has to do. We're going to have multiple players in double figures every night. One name that you didn't mention who was not in double figures, who I thought played really well in the fourth quarter, is Kaylee Johnson. I think she had 9. She has a settling effect, and in that fourth quarter, after we had turned it over and we just weren't playing very well, she kind of was the one who said, hey, let's move the ball side to side, and she got everybody in their place. And then because of that, she was able to hit some really big open threes. We got some really easy open shots by just moving the ball. Tyra Johnson, and they laugh at me because it's supposed to be fun. I cut up on the sideline and I have fun, and she's a silent assassin, and that's what I told her. I said Tyra's a silent assassin. She never says anything, but she's blocking shots and she's rebounding and she's scoring. And there was one time they were like, oh, I don't know if she shoot that, and I'm like, she makes that shot every day in practice. She needs to shoot that, and so she had a really good game. She's a player that's going to be essential for our success because she is our biggest player right now, 6 foot, 6'1", and we are small, so we need her to come in and contribute big minutes.
So you also look at those you mentioned, Kaylee. 8 points is what we had her for. 4 rebounds. Those 4 rebounds are huge out of a guard spot. Madison Mitchell had 5, Jay Robinson and Amari Barnes with 2 as well. One thing you talked about in that Kilgore game was turnovers. You had 31 in that one. In this one, you only had 19. Anytime you get, maybe under 20 turnovers, you don't want to be that high, but it's not 31, and that's a winning combination as well, too.
Yeah, one of our keys to victory for this shorter game was to have less than 15 turnovers. So 19 is a little more, but we had 19 turnovers and 15 assists. So those numbers were pretty close together. So that's a number that I can be a little more happy with. Again, I'd like for that turnover number to stay around 15. 2 of those kids that you mentioned, Jay Robinson and Amari Barnes, their numbers, their scoring numbers may not have been great, but those 2 did a lot to contribute and help us win that game too. Rebounding wise, Amari Barnes is a versatile player who we can put anywhere. Sometimes we play her at the 3, sometimes we play her at the 4, and she can guard at both positions. She's long. I remember vividly one time we were pressing, and I've never asked her to play the back on the press until that day. I got Jay Robinson on the front of the press, who is very active and very long, and then put Amari at the back of the press, and she's like, "Coach, I've never played here," and she embraces it and does it, and her long arms and stuff, she gets the steal just because she's so long and active. So those 2, even though their stats may not show how well they played, those 2 played really, really well. Again, I felt like our point guards, Kyzar Bell and Maddie Mitchell, I don't know that they either one scored a lot of points, but they didn't turn the ball over, and they ran our team. Kyzar Bell was the catalyst for the run who got us going, and then Maddie Mitchell came in and finished it off. So sometimes those kids are kind of unsung heroes. They don't always get the credit they deserve because their stat line doesn't always show it. But without them, our team doesn't run.
All right, seems like Amari here early on filling that role left open by Q. Whatever you need, Coach,
yeah,
I'll do it.
That may be who she is. I did get mad with her. She was wide open in the corner, and she shoots the ball extremely well, and she passed up a shot, and me and the whole bench, we all got mad with her. You got to shoot it when you're open. And that's something I don't, if you're open, I want you to shoot it, unless you've missed 7 or 8 in a row, or unless somebody else is more open than you are, or unless we don't have rebounders. And that's what I told her. I said, you got to be ready, and you got to shoot it, because she can do that, and she can help us win that way.
You look ahead after a solid opening weekend. You've got 2 games coming up this week. You're going to go on the road for 1, and then we'll have the home opener later this week. We'll talk about that road match first. You're going to go to Delta. You're going to play them this upcoming Tuesday, November 5th, 5:30. What do we know about that bunch coming into it? I know it's early. I don't know if they've played yet, but what are you expecting out of that atmosphere?
Well, I think our goal for the week, and this is how we're going to break it down all season, is let's go 2-0 this week. No other games matter except the 2 this week. We want to go 2-0 this week, and to win 2, you got to win 1 first. So I've got film on Delta from some of their scrimmages early in the year. I do not think they have played a game. They had a game on their schedule, but it has been removed now, so I do not believe that they have played a game. A lot of transfer players, very, very athletic, want to play very, very fast, want to try to speed you up and turn you over, which is going to be a problem for us because we like to turn the ball over, and that's going to be a focus in practice today is don't let them speed you up. Play our game and don't turn the ball over. I think it'll be a challenge for us because it is our first real road trip. It's a 2.5-hour drive. It's the first time we'll travel with the men. It is a hostile environment. Their baseball players and their football players are going to sit across from our bench, and they're going to talk about me, and they're going to talk about our players, and that's college basketball. That's part of the atmosphere, and that's what makes it fun, but you've got to be mentally tough enough to deal with that. When you shoot an air ball and they start screaming at you about it, you've got to be mentally tough enough to get back down the floor, and the next time you're open, come down and keep shooting and nail the shot. And so I think that'll be a challenging atmosphere for us. I'm excited about playing on the road. If you look at our conference schedule, we've got some really tough road games. We've got to go to Oklahoma. We've got to go to East Mississippi. We've got to go to Northeast. Those are really far trips. So I think our preseason schedule is preparing us for that. And I think this Delta game will be one that does. And
then we look ahead to Thursday. We open up the home portion of the schedule. You get to return to the friendly confines of Mullen Gym and play an opponent that we feel really familiar with. Played them the last couple of years. I know that first year we played them, You were still over at Southwest, but got to play them twice last year, and this is South Arkansas, a team that you went toe-to-toe with twice last year. I think we needed overtime here to beat them, if I'm not mistaken, and then went up there and played them again, a very tight contest. But what do we know about that bunch coming in? I know last year they had a pretty good sophomore group, so maybe a little bit younger than what they were last year, but what do we know about that bunch?
Yeah, they are a little younger than they were last year. I don't know a ton. I did watch them play against Kilgore before we played shorter on Saturday, that they were playing Kilgore. A lot of freshmen. They have one sophomore returning post who caused us some problems last year, so she'll be challenging for us. Very fundamental team, very smart basketball team, going to be able to shoot the ball really well, so we will have to be disciplined against them. I'm concerned a little bit because our team, we sat there and watched them play Kilgore, and Kilgore beat them by 40 or 50 or whatever it was. but I don't want us to underestimate them. Kilgore is a really, really good team. And just because South Arkansas only scored 40 points or whatever it was doesn't mean that they can't and doesn't mean that they don't have the ability to. So we've got to respect them. We've got to take them seriously, and we've got to be focused to win the game. But, let's take it one game at a time. I won't talk about South Arkansas at all. We'll go straight for Delta. Today we'll prep for Delta. Tomorrow we'll go play. And then on Wednesday we'll start talking about, South Arkansas. When I start playing, I like to play. I don't leave a lot of time for practice. And so we're playing, 4 games in like 7 days. And, it is what it is. That's basketball season, and we're getting in the flow. I can simulate practice and we can bring our practice players in, but you don't get the kind of experience in practice that you get from playing games. And all these games in the preseason, I want to win them all, but they're all preparing us for conference play.
So lots of good things happening for the Lady Wolves. Again, split the weekend, drop the game against Kilgore 82-51, pick up a win against Shorter 66-51 in that one. They'll be on the road this upcoming Tuesday at Delta. If Delta streams that one, we'll provide you that link. And then we'll be at home on Thursday facing off against South Arkansas. Co-Lin won't stream that one, so we do want everybody to come out. Come support the Lady Wolves. Come cheer them on in their home debut on Thursday at 5:30. Stick with us through the break. Joining me next will be our head football coach, Glenn Davis. We'll talk about the Wolves' season finale this past Thursday and then look at the season as a whole after this.
At Capaya Lincoln Community College, you'll find a family of instructors and staff who truly care about your success. And not to mention a really fun college experience, too. Co-Lin was recently ranked number 1 in the state for student success. So whether you need to start or finish your college degree, take classes on one of our 3 campuses or online, Co-Lin is the place to be.
Welcome back in. Thanks for sticking with us through the break. And as promised, joining me now is our head football coach, Glenn Davis. Coach, thanks for joining me.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me.
And Coach, sadly, we have to say, joining us for the last time this year. Unfortunately, the season has come to an end. But fortunately, you got to end it on a high note. You beat the Tigers of Northeast 44-14. First, your thoughts on the game and how it felt as a whole. It was a little weird. It took us a couple of hours to play that first quarter because of some rain delays. And, I thought the energy the guys brought, even after those long delays, was really great.
Well, that's the thing I told them at halftime is that they had already played through similar situation at Kahoma. So they knew how to go in and take things. Adjustments and checks that we needed to make, and I just thought they came out and with great effort and attitude was great about finishing 5-4 instead of 4-5, and we preached that all week, and like I say, having played through that before, I think was a big advantage for us.
So you look at the box score, a really dominating performance by your defense. Only 101 yards allowed, only 8 passing yards. I think that might be a season low all year. Yeah. 93 yards on the ground, just allowed 3 first downs. I don't think you can say enough about how well the defense played.
They played really well, and I think Northeast. I don't know if they were prepared for the weather. It didn't seem like it. But like I say, our defense came out from the very start, got turnovers, and got off the field on 3rd downs, and we didn't have the penalties to keep drives alive. Really pleased with how they played. And
you look at the defensive leaders. We'll kind of go a little bit backwards here from how we normally do it. But you look at it, it's guys that we've talked about all year. We've talked about them really for their last couple of years. LaKendrick James, Champ, leads the way with 5 tackles. Brent Barnes has 4. Fernando Washington, Malachi Williams, Kenneth Andrews, Deantre Washington all have 3, along with Tenarian Jackson. So a great way for him to end his freshman year with 3. Just a solid day from up and down for that whole unit. There wasn't anybody who just was leagues better than everybody else, but a solid day.
I mean, guys that we counted on all year and going into the season, we thought that we'd be counting on. Those are the same guys you mentioned.
So you look at the box score from the rest of it. Will Loy really bounced back well. Thought he played really well in this one. 5 for 8, 97 yards, and a touchdown there through the air. And then he also had a 36-yard rush. We'll talk about that one a little bit later. It was a scoring rush, a little keeper, something that you wish, I think, wanted to see more of all year, but it was nice to see it there at the end. Pritchard also played as well, too, 1 for 3 with 9 yards. Just talk about your quarterback play and talk about how essential they were to the success of this one.
Well, I mean, I think Will played, like I say, we only threw it 8 times, but I thought he ran the offense, and it was one of those nights where, we probably weren't going to throw it, but if we had to, we felt like we could just because of having played in a game like that, and we had practiced with it on Tuesday, wet balls and that kind of stuff, just trying to get ready for it. And like I say, Will did a good job of doing what we needed to do to win the game.
And in the rushing game, Deantre Jackson Jr. had a career night, 12 rushes, a career high 164 yards, and career high in touchdowns, three touchdowns there. Trey Minor also a very good night for him, 19 rushes, barely missed that 100-yard mark at 89 yards and a touchdown. So the running game was the focus, and it really showed that night.
Yeah, I mean, both of those guys played well. Deantre, you can't say enough about his. He had 2 runs. 2 fairly long runs for touchdowns, and gave us a big boost from there of big explosive plays, and Trey was steady.
And then you look at the receiving game. Jordan Richardson led the way, a pair of receptions, 54 yards. He had the touchdown. Jabraxton Boone, 3 receptions, 43 yards, and Matt Mayfield had a 9-yard reception as well too. So 3 guys that we've called a lot this year, and it really feels like that this is a game they can really springboard on for next year.
Yeah, I mean, those guys are all going to be back, and I mean, we feel really good about them, and now we just got to make sure we have somebody that can throw it to them, and but like I say, those guys have gotten better and better, I think, each week from where they were at the beginning of the season to where they are now.
Look at the kicking game as well, too. I thought Humberto Rosales did really well. 1 for 1 on a 37-yard field goal, 5 for 5 on extra points. Punted the ball really well, had 3 punts overall, did have one of those blocked. I think maybe the wet field, a little bit of a little low snap probably affected that, but still went 15 yards on a block punt. And on his kickoffs, I thought he did a really good job as well, too.
He did. He didn't kick it as deep, but that was kind of be expected with the weather on kickoffs. The one that we thought he might have held it a little bit long, and then we may have not have called the protection right on the one punt that was blocked. And but other than that, I thought he had a good night.
So you look at the box score, and the guys jumped out ahead early in that first quarter before we even had one weather delay. Will completed a 36-yard touchdown pass to Jordan Richardson. Really just a beautiful catch and run there. Talk about that play and talk about how good it was to see that connection.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I say, we felt like we could throw it, and I had kind of talked to him about, we know where we're going to be receiver-wise, and defense doesn't know, so a lot of times that's kind of misconception about not being able to throw it in the rain, and that was big, be able to do that, and like I said, Jordan made the catch and then finished it off with a big run. Then
obviously there was a big long weather delay as well too. For some lightning, you come back out, you're able to score again. You get the ball on the Tiger 5-yard line off a block punt. I believe we had Cannon Cato on that block punt. Just came over there from one of the gunner spots and was able to get a hand on it. Thought it was going to stay in the end zone. Unfortunately, was able to squib out, but you picked that ball up. I believe that was Bryce Hooker who recovered it for you, and then Deantre Jackson Jr. a 5-yard touchdown rush for his first score of the game.
Yeah, I mean, Cannon made a really good play on the ball, and he was showing outside and darted underneath the protector back there on the punt team, and I mean, he showed some things that that we hadn't seen out of him in special teams tonight, and that was mighty big.
He comes up with another big play the very next drive. Bad snap. The punter takes off with it. He makes the tackle for a loss, gives the ball to you on the Tigers' 19-yard line. This is where Humberto Rosales kicks the 37-yard field goal. Unfortunately, there was another weather delay before we could get this one, but that 37-yard field goal came in the second half, and that made it 17-0 at that point with about 14 minutes left.
Yeah, I mean, that says a lot about Will and the catching the snap and the hold, with Jackson and Humberto kicking it, and to be able to catch it and do all that in the rain, that was pretty impressive.
And the scoring continues for the Wolves. Jackson Jr. with his second touchdown from 11 yards out makes it 24-0. And then this was the quarterback keeper by Will Loy, 36 yards. He just kind of kept going. I think he thought he was going to get tackled. We were up in the press box going, "Keep running, Will, keep running, keep going." I thought it was a really impressive run by Will.
Yeah, because everybody on the sideline had thought Trey had fumbled the ball because we didn't see him when he came around the corner with the football. So, Micah had told him, Will, in one of the breaks that, they were running the stretch that play down from behind, and, if it looked like that, to pull it, because it was, there was nobody else back there because they were rolling 3 strong on us, and, it was a good adjustment in there and during the break.
Kudos to Will, because I think he fooled all of us in the press box as well, too. We all thought Trey got hit for a big loss there as well, too. So you look at it, and Again, you score one with about 40 seconds left. This time, Jackson Jr. from 46 yards out makes it 38-0 with 40 seconds left. And at that point, you know, if it wasn't over by then, it's certainly over by now.
Yeah, I mean, it was like I say, those big runs like that, you know, explosive plays. You know, we've been looking for those, you know, in some of the other games, and you know, it's glad to have them. Anytime you can get them, you're glad to have them.
And then the second half, you got the running clock. No scoring in the third quarter. The Tigers scored 2 in the fourth. The Trey Minor 6-yard rush squeezed in the middle between those. That's how you get 44-14. So, but you look at the season as a whole, Coach, and I know you look at it and you go 5-4. That feels disappointing coming off the season that you had last year, 3-3 in the South Division. But I think when you go back and look at it, you'll go and there's a handful of plays that if they go the opposite way, this team is a one-loss football team, and they're in the playoffs right now.
Yeah, I mean, you win those games early. You know, I thought early on, if we'd have played Holmes, 10 times, that we'd have beat them 9 after coming out of that game. And the Jones game, I thought we could have won that game. So, the Gulf Coast game was going to be one. It's a one-score game. And East Central, you never know. You get to that point, you're playing with a different type of confidence that game could have been different as well. So, but it's a great thing. A lot of those guys that played this year are going to be back, and so we're excited about having an older football team next year.
And you look at it again. We hinted on it last week. This season doesn't diminish what this group of sophomores that's leaving did last year as freshmen. An incredible season. They're conference runners-up. They win the bowl game, one of the best records you had here in your years. And, you just tip your cap and you say thank you to those guys. And you look forward to watching the ones who are going to go forward playing at a 4-year university well.
I mean, no doubt. I mean, those guys, they've got a lot to be proud of. And, we're extremely proud of them. And, like I say, watch where they're going to go next is going to be fun to see where all their trips go, and because there'll be a lot of them that have opportunities to keep playing.
Right, and you certainly you anticipate some of these guys being on that same level of, say, a Johnny Daniels who's having a great year at Mississippi State, or Billy Pullen and Cavante Wells both having great years at ULM. So, again, just look forward to watching these guys. It's always fun when they come back, but it's always fun to also say, hey, look what these guys are doing at the next level.
I mean, no doubt. I mean, that's the thing. You watch Saturday's game, Johnny scores touchdown, and Billy and Cavante both have big games for ULM against Marshall, and these guys here will be the same kind of guys of going on and having great years somewhere else.
So now we turn our attention to National Signing Day. Of course, we'll give you all that information when we have it, when the Wolves sign their new incoming players. That'll be when we come back after our winter break and all that stuff. But again, the Wolves in the season 5-4, 3-3 in South Division play, end it with a win over the Tigers, 44-14. That wraps up our football portion of our coaches show this season. We hope you've enjoyed all of our talks with Coach Davis throughout the year. I know I've enjoyed them. I feel like Coach has been enjoying talking to us and being able to break down things with y'all as well too. Stick with us through the break. Joining us next is our men's head basketball coach, David Sanders. We're going to talk about how the Wolves did this past weekend as they opened their season.
This year, the Co-Lin Foundation celebrated raising more than $1 million in support of the college. Those funds help provide scholarships for students, professional development opportunities for faculty and staff, support for athletics, technology and campus upgrades, and more. When you give to the foundation, you're making an immediate impact on Co-Lin students, faculty, and staff. Join us as we back the pack by giving today.
Welcome back in. Thanks for sticking with us through the break. And joining me now as our head men's basketball coach for the first time this season, David Sanders. Coach, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
And Coach, obviously a little bit of a rough weekend. Guys, I think you would say probably played well, had a lead in one game, let it go, and then escaped with had a 4-point loss in the other one, real close there. But your thoughts overall on the weekend, even though the guys went 0-2, I think it was a couple of good showings for them.
Yeah, when I made that schedule, I wasn't, planning on my best player being out. So I thought for what we had and the teams we were facing, I thought the guys played really well. We had a chance to win those games. Turnovers kind of got us. Missed free throws kind of got us. So, but I thought I was very encouraged by what I saw.
So you look at the Northwest Florida game first. You played against the number 5 team in the nation. I think this is the third year in a row that you've opened with them or played them within the first 2 or 3 games. And this one feels like it was the closest one of the 3 since the very first one when you lost that one in overtime. And you dropped this one 74-64. had a lead at halftime, 31-23, but ultimately have a 10-point loss on your hands. Talk about what you saw out of your guys. Freshmen getting their first start here. You don't. Again, you mentioned it. Not having Quarteria Scott probably hurts them, especially down the stretch. But your thoughts overall on the opening game?
Well, I thought we had a great game plan. It was working really well. First half, I think it was up 8. Probably shouldn't have been up about 18, 19. Missed some easy opportunities, some chances to score, some free throws. And you can't make those kind of mistakes against a team like Northern Florida. But I thought that the key to the game, they just kind of wore us down with their press and down the stretch, kind of had to play guys extended minutes. They kind of got tired. Some of them freshmen weren't really ready. And, they just kind of wore down on us. Foul kind of flipped on us some, what you expect on the road. But like I said, all in all, I thought the guys played a really good game.
You look at the line score, had a couple of 22-point games out of Devin Bates and Javion Watkins, a couple of your freshmen really showing up big there. It looks like, unfortunately, Devin fouled out, might have fouled out later, picked up that 5th foul, and that's probably a big change there for you as well, too. And then 17 points out of Dakota Hillard, and then 3 points from Antonio Otis, and just 4 guys score for you in this one. I know in the past it always feels like Wolves basketball, especially under you, has been better when the scoring is a little bit more stretched out than just 4 guys. So, I think you would say going forward, you'd like to have more than just 4 in that scoring line.
Well, definitely. It was more than 4 guys that shot. So, some of the guys couldn't get their shots going, couldn't get the foul. I thought Prince Ojoku had a tough game for us. We expected him to play pretty well, and he had a really rough game, and that kind of hurt us. And a few guys coming off the bench couldn't get their shot going. Holding a team like Northwest Florida to 74 points, you can't really ask for any more than that. We just got to put more points on the board. And I think, like I said, you had some freshmen play really well. I thought Dakota did a good job. We got to get our 2 other bigs, freshman bigs, to kind of help him out a little bit. But, guys kind of ran out of gas, man, and it just happens.
Then you look at your game on Saturday against Southern Union. You dropped this one really close, 4 points. They beat you 86-82. And another game where you had a lot of guys who played a lot of minutes. But your thoughts on this one? And, this one felt like, you again had some opportunities, just couldn't put them away, and unfortunately couldn't get that win on this one.
Yeah, teams are kind of taking the approach of pressing us and hoping we make a bunch of mistakes. And right now we're kind of playing into their hands. And so, we got to do a better job of taking care of the ball. I think if we cut our turnovers in half, we win both of those games. And so, like I said, but Quarteria Scott is a big part of that. Once he kind of comes back, that's going to kind of push the hierarchy down a little bit. And some guys have been in a more comfortable situation because he can handle a lot of that pressure. So, I'm very, very excited about what we got. Southern Union's a great team. It's actually one of the schools they recruited me when I was in high school. And they really scrap and fight, and they play hard, man. And I thought our guys kind of matched their intensity. I thought Dakota made some big baskets for us down the stretch. And I feel like Devin Bates should be probably Conference Player of the Week. He had 26 and 14 in that game, coming off a 22 and 7 game. So, it's hard to get it when you lose, though. But I thought he had that caliber week. He's really been playing well for us, and once he gets his ankle back to 100%, I think it's only going to make him that much better. But, real proud about the showing. I thought, the guys went down there and scrapped, and, we got a lot of good film to kind of build on.
And you look at the box score in this one, you're outscored 44-37 in the first half, rebounded, outscored them 45-42 in the second half. So you look overall in 4 halves, you had 2 really good ones, and then you had 2 that were not quite as good. So, again, as you mentioned, there are things there that you can grow on and find a way to be a team that can play 2 complete full halves of basketball.
Yeah, definitely. Excuse me. With 9 freshmen, I know it's only going to get better with that, as far as guys, understanding time, score, situation, and just valuing the ball a little bit more. I think we kind of made some passes that, guys that were able to make in high school that you can't make on this level. So, that's something they'll get better at, and going forward, I think it'll be great.
You look at the line score, you mentioned it, Devin Bates with a big double-double, 26 and 14, tied for the game high in points, and I believe led all players in rebounds with 14. So that gave him a double-double for the week, but you also had 17 out of Dakota Hillard. You had 8 from Prince Ojoku, 8 from Chris Stevens Jr., 5 apiece from Dawson Knox and Brick Nkugwa, 3 from Antonio Otis, and a pair piece from Damarian Terry and Corey Brown, along with 4 from Javion Watkins. So, again, we mentioned that the scoring spread out a little more evenly in that second game, and you see where it's a little bit closer result.
Yeah, I thought Chris Stevens really played well in that second game. He's a guy that just a total team guy. He plays hard, and he doesn't care what position you play him at. And I thought he hit a big three late to kind of cut the lead down for us, and he got 5 or 6 big rebounds for us. He's a guy that's pushing for more minutes. And we got a few more guys that produced a little bit in that second game, so you can already kind of see the improvement. Scored 82 points as opposed to 62, 64 in the first game. And so, you just want to be building toward conference play. That's what the non-conference is all about.
You look ahead this upcoming week, you're going to go on the road with the Lady Wolves, go down to Delta on Tuesday, November 5th. You'll play the Trojans. What do we know about that bunch coming in? I know on the ladies' side, they were supposed to have already played one game, but apparently haven't. But what do we know about the Trojans heading into that one on Tuesday?
Not a lot. Not a whole lot. Anytime you get a coach fierce team, you're going to get a group of guys that's scrappy, that's going to play hard, and it's going to be a tough fight. We had to go down there and win at the buzzer last year, so we're expecting a fight with them, and we know that they're going to be well coached, and so we're just going to kind of go in it and hopefully feel our way through it. We hadn't been able to see a lot of film or stuff on them in the off season or in the preseason, so. But basketball is basketball. We go in and stick to our principles, I think we'll be okay.
And then you'll go on this weekend, another road trip down to Florida. You're going to go down to Panama City. You'll play Chipola. That's a name that anybody who follows basketball, Chipola College. And then, of course, you'll play Gulf Coast State. That's Chipola will be Saturday, November 9th. Gulf Coast State, Sunday, November 10th. What do we know about those two teams coming in, and what are you expecting out of that atmosphere?
Well, actually, funny story. I bumped into Coach Corey from Southwest at Chick-fil-A down there this weekend, and they had just beat Chipola. And Chipola's a really big and athletic team, and of course, Southwest is going to be really tough, but I got a little information from him on them. And, they're always really good. Last year, they pressed us from start to finish, so, they're going to play high up tempo. And Gulf Coast State has a very familiar face on their team, and Emmanuel James. So, we know it's going to be a tough game, too. So, we got to, just have our minds right going into it. I think this early stretch is going to really be good for us.
So lots of exciting things happening for the Wolves. Still looking for that first win, but growth is kind of the mindset and the thing that you're looking for most right now, especially not having Cortarius Scott in the starting lineup. We look forward to having him back. We look forward to talking to you all season, Coach. Again, Wolves dropped both of their games this past weekend, 74-64 to the 6th-ranked Raiders out of Northwest Florida State, and then drop a close one to Southern Union, 86-82. Both of those happened over at Northwest Florida State. They'll be on the road for 3 this week. First off at Delta on Tuesday, November 5th at 7:30. We'll pass along those stream links if they're available to you on our social media. And then on the road at Panama City, Florida against Chipola and Gulf Coast State. Both of those happening on the campus of Gulf Coast State College. Chipola game Saturday, November 9th. And then the Gulf Coast State game Sunday, November 10th. We'll give you those stream links if they're available as well, too, on our social media throughout the year and for those upcoming games. I'm Kevin Kyzar, Sports Information Coordinator here at Co-Lin. Thanks for tuning in for our men's basketball segment. Stick with us through the break. We got a couple of more sports we're going to talk about, and golf should be our first one. Coach Kent will join us after the break. Welcome back in. Thanks for sticking with us through another break. And as promised, joining me now is our head golf coach, Alan Kent. Coach, thanks for joining me.
Anytime.
And Coach, obviously the fall season is done. Wish we could have got you in a little bit earlier, but schedule didn't really allow it. But we're done with the fall. And just overall, your thoughts on the fall. I know the guys have played really well out of the gate, had a couple of really strong performances, and then the last couple haven't been near as strong as you would like them to be. But your thoughts overall?
Yeah. It's just consistency, Kevin. We've not been able to get a consistent round from everyone. We know what we're capable of, but when you got 3 guys shooting in the 70s and 2 shooting in the high 80s, then our scores as a team go down. So even if we're just having to take one score. That's mid to upper 80s. That's just really killing us as far as a team goes. And it's been a struggle. We are looking forward to hopefully Kobe Cox getting cleared to play in December, and we feel like he's going to kind of push the other guys and, for a spot. So hopefully that'll make for a better competition. And, they're all kind of working on a couple of things, swing-wise, but we kind of try to get through the fall before you really start breaking down the swing and making some changes. So, hopefully that's what we're working on now. That's what we're working on today. Is several of them have a few things they're working on as far as their takeaway goes, their follow through, their swing path, how close they're standing to the ball. It's just some little things that a lot of times once they get to college, they haven't really been coached on, and so we're working through some things, and we feel like, in particular, our international guys, even though Oscar's played well, we feel like we've got a lot more in the tank from our internationals in particular.
So again, Coach, we look at these early results, and you look at the first two or three tournaments, invitationals. You had a couple of fifth place finishes, but I think both of those you were third or fourth, and both of them slid down into that fifth spot. And you had a sixth place finish where I think you were a stroke or two out of third, and then fell down. Had a little bit of a rough outing from a couple of guys, fell down to sixth. Those, it kind of felt like you had a lot of things that were very encouraging. Mm-hmm. Really felt like you were heading in the right direction. And then the last two, you were an eighth in one and 13th in another. And 13th sounds pretty rough, but overall that field saw a lot of teams not shooting very well. And the scores were very high. So, the 13th, you say 13th, but it's hard to quantify that. And really, eighth place feels hard to quantify in that one as well, too, because, it feels like if a couple of bounces happen for a couple of guys, a couple of rounds are a little bit different. You mentioned Oscar Terrell. He's probably been your best individual, right. In a sport where you have a team sport, but it's really individuals. Is it harder as a coach to make sure you've got all those guys working together? Because they've got to understand that, yes, I'm an individual, but individually, my score affects that team score as well, too.
Oh, yeah, for sure. There's been a couple times where we've had, we play 5 in a tournament, and then we can take an individual as well. But in those 5, sometimes a guy will be struggling, and he'll just say, well, hopefully, my score is not going to count. But when you have 2 guys having that same round, that can be really frustrating. And there again, it just gets back to being able to put yourself back on the track and leave it in the rearview mirror of what just happened the last hole or two, and that's where we're really trying to grind that out mentally to be able to finish a round. Like the last tournament, for example, Lander had a very bad first round, and then the second round was better. We just kind of dug ourselves a hole. And then the third round, he was, I think, 5 over through 4 holes, and then he shot even par the rest of the tournament. So, it's there. It's just being able to put it all together and just finish out a round. And, some guys are just more mentally tough than others. And there again, that's something we just continue to work on.
Right. You just mentioned Landon Guibert, one of your other 2 internationals that are sophomores, the other one being Oscar Terrell. You saw, I think, something similar from Lander last year. He kind of struggled in the fall and then really turned it on in the spring. So I know you as a coach, you're kind of hoping, hey, maybe we get that same kind of approach from him. But I want to shout out your other sophomore, Harlan Brewer. I think he's probably, you can make an argument, he's probably been very consistent for you. Maybe you want to see that score be a little bit lower, but, he had a round, I think a couple of weeks ago in one of the tournaments where he was your best guy. Yeah. He led the team after the first round, and I saw that, and I said that's very impressive. The next day wasn't as good for him, but I think you've seen him be very solid and kind of improve his play from freshman to sophomore year.
I mean that's what we expect from Harlan every time he goes out there. He's, but there again, sometimes if he gets off to not as good of a start. We're continuing to work with him on that as far as being able to just finish a round and do your thing and, not let it explode into a big number. So, for instance, this one hole, the last tournament we were on, the last day, 1 hole on that course at Windance. I think we were 7 over as a team, maybe 8 over, just on 1 round. So 1 hole just killed us, and in particular, I mean, it was a fairly short hole, easy hole, but hazard on the left, out of bounds on the right, the narrow landing area. But I mean, you could hit an iron and have a wedge in, but you know, it just got us. And then sometimes if it does that on the first round, the second round, just mentally, sometimes that just stays in your head. And you know, we just got to do a better job. We're making too many bogeys and pars on our par fives, you know. So that's really the holes we got to score on, and you know, hope to find some birdies here and there. But you know, that's something we're also working on, is you know, being smart on the par fives. And just because you can maybe get there in two doesn't mean you have to try and do that every time, especially depending on where the pin locations are. So it's trying to get them to think backwards, you know, when they're on the tee. All right, where we know where our pin location is before we even tee off. So where do we want that approach shot to come from? You know, left side of the fairway, the right side, whatever. So again, it's just it's getting them to think a little bit more, go through the process.
Right, and Coach, you mentioned Colby Cox, hopefully get him back, but you've got some more guys in this freshman group that feel really talented. Max Zeideman, Owen Siegfried, Jackson Adams, Nathan Mills. You know, those guys, you know, they've been contributing. Unfortunately, their scores have probably been a little bit on the higher side that you want to say, but, you know, how do you get those guys to really, you know, hopefully kind of round that corner and kind of maybe produce the way that Lander did, and you know, maybe show them, hey guys, it's possible you can have not a great fall, but you can turn it into a really great spring if you turn these things around.
Yeah, there again, some of those guys, and they're all freshmen, and you know, their tournament pressure experience has not been what it is at this level. So it's usually a hump that they've got to get over as a freshman, and we try to put them in competitive situations in practice to be able to put pressure on them so they can perform, you know, when they're actually on the course. And there again, I think a lot of it just gets down to having confidence and, you know, not letting it show on the course if you are not having a good round. Because, you know, I tell them all the time, if I can look at you from 2 holes away and tell you're not doing good, then your opponent can do the same thing, and, you know, you're beat right there. So we talk a lot about, you know, showing self-confidence and, you know, not letting them see you sweat, that kind of thing. So, you know, it's just got to translate. It's kind of a catch-22 situation. They've got to do well enough in our qualifiers and our practice rounds for us to be able to take them either on the team or as an individual. But if they're not competitive enough in our practice rounds and our qualifiers, then, you know, it's difficult to get them out there on the course in a tournament situation. So we're just still got some work to do.
And Coach, obviously a little bit of a unique situation with golf. It's probably the truly only year-round sport we have at the junior college level. But now you got about a 3-month break. You know, now it's just kind of, you get to practice, you get to work on some things, as you mentioned now, you know, and hopefully with that tournament experience, as you mentioned, with the freshmen now, maybe they've gotten over that hump. Maybe you come back and you'll play again in February. You know, you've got several more coming, but when you come back in February, really when you come back in January looking for that February matchup, what are you expecting out of this group, you know, to propel them for that spring and get ready for the postseason as well, too?
It is a grind, no doubt. And as you said, our sport is totally different from any other sport in JUCO, where it counts from day one in the fall till we're done in the spring. So it's just mentally taking some time off, sometimes physically taking a week or 2 off. I think does them some good personally, is, you know, still as long as they're hitting the gym and, you know, doing their stretching and all that. But yeah, we're looking forward to hopefully them continue to work on things individually during our downtime, and you know, being able to use the indoor facility that we have and work on some things as far as ball flight goes and ball position. I mean, there's just a lot of little things that some of them are still working on. You know, they don't realize it till you know, and don't get me wrong, a lot of them, they video themselves and they video their swing, but they may not always do it from the front or, always from behind. And as a coach, you're always trying to look for things to try to help them improve, to be able to strike the ball consistently. And, sometimes they don't realize, hey, I'm standing this far away from it, or I've got it too far up in my stance, or, my shoulders are open. There's just so many little things that can affect that swing. It's just got to be on plane. And if it doesn't start on plane, and, it's not going to always come back on plane either. So it's just putting the work in and striking the ball consistently and just being smart, being a student of the game.
So, Coach, thanks for joining us. Look forward to having you hopefully a couple more times over the spring. You got a little more spread out schedule, so hopefully we're able to get in and talk more about Wolves golf. Again, a little bit of an up and down fall, but some good results, some things that the team can definitely grow on and work on. Thanks for tuning into this segment. Thanks to everybody tuning in back home watching our segment here on Wolves Golf. Again, they'll be back in action in February. Long 3-month break, but lots that the team can work on and grow on from all the results they've had this fall. Stick with us. Our final segment coming up. We're going to talk about Wolves soccer. Coach Cosgrave will join us for that, and we'll talk about the playoffs after this.
Ready to boost your career? Co-Lin Workforce has got you covered. Enroll now in our short-term affordable non-credit courses and gain high-demand skills in commercial truck driving, certified clinical medical assistant, EMT, welding, and utility line worker. Plus, new this fall, basic plumbing. Funding assistance may be available. Don't wait. Enroll today. Visit colin.edu/workforce. That's colin.edu/workforce. Your future starts now.
Welcome back in. Thanks for sticking with us through our final break and joining us for our final segment. And the final soccer segment of the year is head men's and women's soccer coach Tom Cosgrave. Coach, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
And Coach, obviously, as I hinted, a little bit of a tough week. You started out the week with a couple of wins and then a couple of losses in the quarterfinals of the Gulf South District playoffs. But your thoughts overall first on the girls on the past week first.
Yeah, it was excellent to get a good result against Southwest and make it into the playoffs. It all came down to the final game, so it was exciting for both teams on that day. So it was nice to get the result and get into the playoffs. And we were feeling quite confident going into it. We told the girls that once you get to playoffs, it's anybody's game and they just have to be ready for it. And the playoff games are won on fine margins, and we just got to make sure we're on the right side of it. Unfortunately, just wasn't meant to be.
3-0 scoring lines in both of those, obviously beating the Lady Bears 3-0, but falling to the Lady Bulldogs of Holmes 3-0. We'll look at the game against the Lady Bears. As you mentioned, and you needed this one to get into the playoffs. It obviously feels really good to get a win. It feels even better when you know that win kept your rival from getting into the playoffs.
Yeah, it was excellent. Coming down, we made it interesting, and we said that was the bad part about the season, is leaving it to the last game. But the good part about it was that we could have got to the playoffs being at Southwest, and obviously it's always nice whenever you get a victory at their place.
And you look at the scoring line in this one. Lisa Johnson got everything started, headed in a ball off a corner kick from Emmy Cook, and then just a few minutes later, Reagan Fortenberry bite kicks one in for her first goal. Probably one of the most impressive goals of the whole season. I know you and I were standing beside each other and we were sitting there watching, and we went, holy smokes, that just went in. But you got that 2-0 lead. Talk about those first two goals and what's the message to the girls, knowing you got one more half to play if you finish this one off. Barring one result that we're watching, you're in the playoffs.
Yeah, we talked to the girls before the game and said, their season's pretty much over and done with, so we've got to make sure that we can punish them early. And if we get an early goal, I think that they'll shut down. They want to make it as difficult as possible for us, but from a psychological standpoint, if you go 1-0 up, it's really easy for the other team to shut down. So we scored 2 really good goals. It was a great header from Lisa, and then, yeah, as you mentioned, Reagan's little overhead bicycle kick was lovely. I didn't expect her to do that, but it was a great finish.
And then the final goal, 74th minute, you get a penalty kick. Shiv nails that one, gives it 3-0. You maintain that kind of pressure defense that you hit with them all the whole game, and we're able to get that 3-0 win and then move into the playoffs. And then we look at the playoff game, and this game, the same scoreline from the regular season, but the playoff game felt like it was a little more. It was a little more tightly contested match than what the 3-0 scoreline says it was.
Yeah, I think, it was 1-0 for a large portion of the game. We made it difficult for them. We caused them problems, and we weren't easy to break down, and we just needed a little bit more quality going forward. I thought we'd done a really good job defensively, but on the attacking side, we just struggled to get anything going. And pressure after pressure, it made it a little bit more difficult for our defenders just to keep it at bay at 1-0.
When you looked at the regular season matchup, you gave up that first goal literally within 40 seconds, so you were having to play kind of with your back against the wall for most of it. This one, it took 35 minutes before a goal was scored, and it's 1-0. It's at halftime. Same scoreline it was during the regular season. What was the message to the girls, knowing if you can just get one or two chances going forward, this game can flip and it can go your way easily?
Yeah, we just we told the defenders keep doing what they're doing. I thought they've done a really good job with our back four and our two centre midfielders. We're doing excellent covering ground and winning their 1v1s. We just told the forward and the attacking players we need more from you guys. You know, whenever that ball comes your way, that one opportunity, that one half a chance, you've got to find a way to get it into the back of the net and get us back into the game. And we said if we could get the equaliser, who knows what could have happened then. We could have gone on, because momentum's a massive thing in soccer. So we just told them to try and get that equaliser the best we can, and unfortunately we just couldn't quite get it.
You then gave up goals in the 65th and 80th minutes, and as we mentioned, just couldn't get anything going forward. And Coach, when you look back at this season, you look at the record, and the record says 4-6-4 overall, 4-4-3 in conference play. But I think anybody who watched this team, that record is not indicative of how good this team was.
Yeah, you know, we had a lot of freshmen coming in, a lot of young faces coming in, so we knew it was going to be a difficult task. And then we had a ridiculous amount of injuries. So we were faced with a lot of adversity this year, but I was proud of the effort, proud of the girls and how they stepped up and battled. They made it really difficult for a lot of teams coming in, especially, like I said, with a lot of new faces. So looking forward, we're excited. We've got a lot of returners coming back for next year, and I think if we can add a little bit more depth to the squad, a little bit more firepower on the attacking side, I think we're going to be definitely competitive again next year.
And you look at that and you say that, and you base that off the fact that when you look up and down that score line, you see a lot of 2-1s, 2-2s. There's not a lot of zeros over there. Even the games where you were shut out, a couple of them were to Holmes 3-0, one of them to Northwest 6-0. Those are not terrible score lines, and I think it's indicative of the really good defense that you played throughout most of the year. Maybe the Pearl River game withstanding, that might have been the worst effort you gave on defense all year, but I think defense was the hallmark of this team.
Yeah, once we realised that, you know, after the Pearl River game, we had a little bit of a heart-to-heart with the girls and said, you know, look, every game in this conference is difficult. You got to be able to show up and give 100%. And I think defensively, I was really proud of our effort defensively. I just think, like you mentioned there, I just think we needed to be a little bit more clinical on the attacking side. So I think if we can bolster that for next season, I think we're going to be definitely competitive.
And then we'll flip the page and look at the guys' matchups. Again, a week where you went 1-1. Your thoughts overall on how well the guys played? And we'll just start with that Southwest match. You win that one 2-1. A game that was hard fought. Got a little hot-headed there at the end, but a great soccer match nonetheless. But your thoughts on how well the guys played?
Yeah, I was really proud of their resilience and their togetherness in that game. It was a really tough place to go. It's always a really tough place to go. I thought this year was probably one of the most difficult years that we've had going there, especially just with the environment and everything that was going on. We spoke about that all week, you know, controlling what we can control. Let's not get caught up in anything silly or anything like that. Let's just focus on our game. From the first whistle, it was a very highly emotional game from both teams. And I think we ended up doing a pretty good job for the most part of keeping our heads and just focusing on what we needed to do and getting the result. And
you went into this one kind of knowing a win or a tie kind of will get you in the playoffs, so you just had to get a result. As long as it wasn't a loss, you were going to be okay. And in the first half, it's scoreless. There really weren't a lot of shots on goal from either team as well, too. Felt like it was a tightly contested defensive battle. What's your message to the guys knowing, hey, if we play another half like we just played, we're going to be okay, we're going to get into the playoffs?
Yeah, we just said, you know, they've got to come out and win the game. So we knew second half they were going to come forward and attack us a little bit more. So we just said we've got to make sure that we're ready for whenever they come forward and hit us on the counter, that we can hit them on the counter as well and make sure that we take our opportunities whenever it comes our way. And I thought we'd done a really good job of that in the second half of responding and reacting really well. And then you look at the scoreline. Hudson McIntyre gets you on the board, 57th minute, gets you a 1-0 lead. They tie it in the 71st minute with a PK. It's 1-1, and at that point you're thinking, hey, it's still a tie. We still got to play the way we do. Fortunately, it was about 30 seconds later. Lucas Giacomini jumps up, heads one in past the goalie, and that celebration was a lot of fun. But a 2-1 scoreline there, and you know you got to get through those final 18 minutes. And I think your guys played great defense to get through those final 18 minutes and secure that win. Yeah, I think that just all comes down to like what we mentioned before, the resilience of the team. They were all working for each other. They were going the extra mile, putting their bodies on the line to get blocks on the crosses and shots and everything. And I think that just summed up our effort this year. Whenever the boys knuckle down and they give it their all, they're a really tough team to beat.
And then you look at the playoff match. I don't know that you can describe this one any other way, but just a little bit heartbreaking because the guys played so well. Guys played well enough to win, and you don't get the result, and it's a 1-0 loss. Your thoughts on this one, and just, it leaves a little bit of a sour taste in your mouth for the season because this team was good enough to win this game, and unfortunately you just didn't get the win.
Yeah, that result definitely stung a little bit from my side of things, and I think we. Looking back at the game and having watched it back, we had a lot of chances to win the game. Both teams did, to be fair. It was a really good game from both sides, well contested from both teams on two different types of styles. I was just more upset that we were on the wrong end of it, and I think that the boys just deserved a little bit more for their effort, especially for what they've done this season. And then in that game as well, I think on a different day we could have got the win and gone on to the semi-finals.
Yeah. You go back and watch it and you look at it and you think we had 4 shots on goal. You had a couple others that weren't on goal. They were good shots. You just couldn't get them there. You had a couple of headers. You talk about those half chances. You had some in that one, and unfortunately, like you said, just couldn't get it rolling. You look at this season overall, you look at that record, 8-5-2, 5-4-2. Again, a team where I don't think that record belays how good this team was. You and I have talked several times. This might be the best team from an athlete standpoint you've ever had here on Co-Lin, and record-wise, maybe doesn't show that. It's one of your top 3 seasons as far as wins and things like that are concerned. But your thoughts on the season as a whole and how this group of guys was able to really come together and gel, despite the fact that you had way more freshmen than you did sophomores.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this group as well for next year. Like I mentioned before, we have a lot of freshmen that got a lot of playing time this year. I think if you look at the averages of our starting 11, I think it was 8 or 9 every game were freshman players that were starting. So a lot to build on for next year. We told them, the freshman guys, to make sure that they're hungry and that they use the motivation of the defeat on Friday to make sure that this offseason we're getting after it. And I think if we can boost our squad with 5 or 6 really good talented players to replace the ones that we're losing, then I think we're going to have a really good shot for next year to be competitive.
And as we've mentioned, unfortunately, seasons have come to an end. And I think, the part that stinks the most is you got to say bye to 2 groups of sophomores who have been phenomenal for this program. And I think when people look back, they're going to look at these 2 groups and go, probably grit and determination define what they were the most for their 2 years.
Yeah, they've been excellent, and a lot of them, especially stepping up as leaders. A lot of them are not natural leaders, but we told them, as sophomores now, you gotta be a leader and you gotta guide these freshmen in the right direction. And I think, that exemplifies it with the 2 captains, so with Unity and Holloway. Definitely not natural leaders, and more so in leading by example, but they've done an excellent job this year of guiding both teams, and can't thank them enough for all their hard work that they've done off the field as well as on the field.
And obviously we look forward to those freshmen being back as well too, 2 talented groups that we have a lot of expectations coming in for next year. So that will in the book on the 2024 season for soccer. Unfortunately, again, both fall in the Gulf South District quarterfinals. The Lady Wolves losing to the Lady Bulldogs of Holmes 3-0. The Wolves losing to the Bulldogs of Gulf Coast 1-0. So phenomenal seasons for both teams, making it to the playoff. I believe third straight year in a row that both teams have made the playoffs. So lots of exciting things happening on the horizon for the Wolves. Looking forward to next season already. Coach, thanks for joining me all year. I know I look forward to it. I think you do too. I think the fans love getting able to hear the viewpoint from you as well too. So thank you everybody to tuning in all season. Unfortunately, no more soccer action to talk about, but as a reminder, we do have basketball this week. Both teams are on the road facing off against Delta on Tuesday, November 5th, 5:30, 7:30. We'll give you those links as they're made available to us if they have them. And then the women will be here at home in Mullen Gym on November 7th. I almost said August. August is way past. November 7th at 5:30 against South Arkansas. And then the men will be on the road this Saturday and Sunday over in Panama City facing off against Chipola and Gulf Coast State. We'll give you those links as they're made available as well, too. I'm Kevin Kyzar, Sports Information Coordinator here at Co-Lin. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next week.